Thank you, Allison. You know, all these awards tonight that we've distributed and those that will follow, they're all very special, but it's time now for a very particular award and to turn our attention to the President's Award for Lifetime Achievement. I first met this year's recipient on the 4th of July in 1986. I was a CBS News correspondent on temporary assignment in Moscow that summer of the first Goodwill Games. Each year on July 4th, the U.S. ambassador to Moscow gathered the American community and other special guests to the Garden of Spaso House, which was the ambassador's residence. Allison certainly knows that from her time in Moscow. Now, we'd been trying for weeks to get authorization to cover the Goodwill Games, to no avail. No CBS cameras, no cameras at all other than CNN's own, because it was the founder-owner of CNN who was underwriting the games. Well, in the corner of the gardens that afternoon, I spotted the man behind it all, and I approached him. I introduced myself. You know, we've been most anxious to cover these Goodwill Games, I said. What would it take to get a CBS camera into the stadium? He leaned back, looked me up and down, then leaned forward and smiled. How would you like to box for America? Young man, speechless at first, I recovered. I beg your pardon? Now, I was a good 20 pounds lighter then than I am now. So he added quickly, again looking me up and down, you look to be what, flyweight, bantamweight? You know, when Ronald Reagan barred the U.S. from my games, the entire boxing team evaporated. They were all American military. I need someone to box for America. What do you say? I don't know. But 10 days later, I was able to do something for this gentleman. At the Bastille Day celebrations at the French Embassy in Moscow, he spotted me standing near President François Mitterrand, and he knew I was based in Paris in those days. So he said, do you know him? I said, I did. Would you introduce me? I would, and did. So I must confess, I never did box for America. We never did get the cameras into the Goodwill Games either. But tonight, 3 decades later, it's my enormous privilege to do one more thing that is within my power. I can award the Overseas Press Club President's Award to an individual whose life and accomplishments best reflect everything the OPC and myself personally stand for. To the incomparable, irrepressible Ted Turner. Ted, before I turn this prize over to you, I want to read the citation so that all of us can experience the kinds of words I wanted to express in this award. To 2012 President's Award to Ted Turner, in recognition of his creation of CNN and the global media company, Turner Broadcasting System, a unique, indeed revolutionary force in international communications. Ted Turner and his brainchild have changed the course of history in every corner of the globe. A transformative figure in the world of journalism with an unparalleled determination and visionary ability to make things happen. A model of integrity, professionalism, and true grit.
Thank you.
Okay, there's your award.
Thanks a lot. Well, a lot of this credit for this goes to the other people that worked at CNN and Turner Broadcasting, some of whom are here tonight. Thank you. And we couldn't have done it alone. But I'll tell a couple of quick stories because they asked me to tell a story. It'd take about 5 minutes. It was the day that the Iraq War started. I was in Los Angeles I was going with Jane Fonda at the time, and before we got married. And I was at her house. She was out working, and I was watching TV. And because Los Angeles is 4 hours or 3 hours ahead of East Coast time, I was in the afternoon, and I was laying in bed watching, and Dan Rather came on and said the war had started. And I flipped over to, and he was talking, and no pictures. And I turned over to NBC, and Tom Brokaw was on talking. No pictures. Turned over to ABC, and there was Peter Jennings. No pictures, nothing from. And I turned over to CNN, and we had everything. But it was due to a lot of preparation. We had made friends with the Iraqi and all the people in the world. I tried to make friends everywhere instead of enemies. And I treated everybody with respect, dignity, and friendliness. And as a result of that, we built up a lot of trust and friendship. And when they decided that they were going to let one network cover the war, they gave us they let us do it. And we didn't do anything to compromise our principles or anything else. In fact, some lines from Shakespeare. I mean, unlike Rupert Murdoch, I'm not being indicted for anything. And never have been, and never will. The last time I got in trouble with the law was 50 years ago. I got a speeding ticket. Anyway, trying to think of one more story. Let me tell you the last story. The last thing I did at CNN is I was being phased out. I was up in my office watching the television, glancing. I had multiple television sets, one for each of the networks, CNN, Headline News, and our other cable networks. And I saw the aftermath of the first rocket go into, the first airplane go into the World Trade Center. I said, holy shit, what's going on? And I turned up the volume so I could hear it, and within about 5 minutes, the second plane went in. And I just happened to notice that Headline News was still in their normal cycle of giving the sports scores and the stock market and so forth. CNN, of course, was covering it live. And I went downstairs into the CNN newsroom, and I ran into Walter Isaacson, who had just taken over as the president of CNN. He lasted about 2 years. Now, he's a dear friend of mine. I like him a lot. He's running the Aspen Institute now and has written some wonderful books, as I'm sure you're. Anyway, I said, well, because very seldom, almost never, but once in a great while, when something really big happened, I would order to switch Headline News to the same live coverage that CNN had, just in case somebody that was watching Headline News and was unaware of the story would be able to see the story. And watching the World Trade Center burn live was that story. So I said to Walter, I said, have you thought about switching Headline News over to the CNN feed? He said, that's a great idea. Let's do it. And within a minute, it was transferred over. We were in the control room. That was the last thing I did. But I want to say, of all the things that I've done in my life, and I've won the World Series, and I've won the America's Cup, and I've been Sportsman of the Year, and Yachtsman of the Year, and Philanthropist of the Year, the thing I've loved most, and still love most, is journalism. And at my heart, I'm with you. God bless you all.